This Wednesday, the Venezuela National Assembly appointed the committee that will lead the selection process to choose the magistrates for the Supreme Court of Justice. In Ecuador, the Ministry of Education suspended on-site classes in Quito on national mourning following a flood that left at least 25 dead and some 12 people reported missing. Taxi drivers and public transportation vehicles in Lebanon blocked roads on Wednesday as part of a three-day strike to protest a decline in the population's living conditions. Hi, this is From the South. I'm your news anchor, Diego Martin, from the teleSUR studios in Havana. We begin with the news. This Wednesday, the Venezuela National Assembly appointed the committee that will lead the selection process to choose the magistrates for the Supreme Court of Justice. The list of 86 people that make up the committee will be chaired by Deputy Giuseppe Alessandrello, and they will be in charge of determining how the selection will proceed. The Venezuelan parliament announced that it was evaluating those nominated by the civil society to join the judiciary system. The committee must also select General Inspectorate of Courts and the director of the National Judiciary School. The Assembly evaluated 104 candidates and ultimately chose 86 who were sworn in by the President of the National Assembly, Deputy Jorge Rodriguez.
In consideration, those deputies who agreed to approve these nominees, analyzed and brought to this hemicycle by the preliminary commission to form the Judicial Nomination Committee that will be in charge of appointing the new magistrates of the Supreme Court of Justice, as well as the General Inspectorate of Courts and the Director of the National Judiciary School, please indicate so with the standard sign. It is hereby approved. The Judicial Nominations Committee is hereby formed as established in the Constitution of the Republic of Venezuela and the Organic Law of the Supreme Court of Justice. Please Deputy Giuseppe Alessandrello, who will lead the committee with the vice presidency of Deputy Jose Tregrosio Correa, please install the committee tomorrow in order to establish the mechanism of its operation and the bodies of the preliminary committee to be sworn in at the ordinary session of next Thursday.
Elections in Costa Rica are welcomed with hope or excitement by less than half of the eligible voters, according to a survey by the University of Costa Rica's Center for Political Studies and Investigations. In the polls conducted by the Research Center, 46% of the voting grid surveyed described that were hopeful or excited with the current presidential candidates, while the remaining 54% of the eligible voters described their feelings regarding the turnout as ones with negative connotations. Of the 3.5 million voters expected to participate in Sunday's elections, 17% of them would cast their vote for ex-President Figueres of the Social Democrat National Liberation Party. According to the study, while Lynette Saborio of Christian Unity Party follows second in intention with 12.8%. Other candidates who would qualify for second round, as showed by the survey's data, are Fabricio Ojeda of New Republic, Rodrigo Chavez of Democratic Progress, and Jose Maria Villata of Broad Front. For the first time in history, the U.S. public debt surpassed $30 trillion, according to the most recent data from the Treasury Department. Since the pandemic was declared in March 2020, the government has pushed through gigantic stimulus plans to prevent a collapse of the economy that sent federal debt soaring. The unprecedented amount reached in the last day has come after an increase of the $7 trillion in the last 2 years, coinciding with the COVID-19 pandemic. Of this $30 trillion, more than $23.5 trillion belong to creditors, 8 of them to foreign investors, especially China and Japan. On December 16th last, President Joe Biden signed a law that suspended the public debt ceiling and prevented the country from defaulting on its national debt. In Bolivia, a sense of outrage and fear troubles many citizens since multiple rapists and women killers who face criminal charges are on the loose due to the negligence of prosecutors and judges. Our correspondent Freddy Morales expands on this matter.
This is the largest demonstration that the city of La Paz has seen in the last years. People gathered round to protest against the injustice that surrounded several cases of family violence, sexual abuse and femicides.
This is my sister. She was a victim of feminicide in 2019, and this man here is the killer. He's already been sentenced.
This is Richard Choke. In 2013, he and Jose Luis Casilla kidnapped, raped and murdered a 20-year-old woman. They were both sentenced to 30 years of jail without the right to an appeal or pardon, but since 2019 they are out on the streets. Choke confessed to killing 2 teenage girls, one of 15 years old and another of 17, as well as to raping and blackmailing 75 women in the past 2 years.
This man filled my underskirt when I was returning home from my school. This man beat me, shoved me, and accused me for wearing a skirt. He blamed me for that. I was outraged.
The bodies of the two missing teenage girls were found buried in Choque's house. The criminal did not deny the facts to a psychiatrist to whom he supposedly would have admitted to killing other 6 women in the past 2 years. This makes the mother's suffering all the more distressful.
This is my little girl Diana, and this is Lidia Ramos de la Paz. Diana Algarañas de Santa Cruz de la Sierra. We are around 36 mothers. It can be. The nurse is the last case. It just can be. If it is not trafficking, then what is? My little girl is missing since 2015. Up to this day, I don't know anything of her. My daughter was 12 years old. Now she's 18, and I haven't seen her. I came all the way from Caravani, and I don't know where she is. We don't know anything. We haven't received any calls, not one. Since that day, my daughter's phone is off. I want justice for my daughters. Maybe it's that killer's fault. Maybe she was leaving school and he took her, and she hasn't come back.
People's souls have been tainted by death and violence, then by a prosecutor, then by a judge, by the answers of justice.
Prosecutors Wilfredo Nina dismissed my rapist. After I collected all the evidence, he didn't take into account the psychological expertise in the case.
I am the father of Warinia Buitrago. She was killed 5 years ago. The accused for my daughter's feminicide is Catherine Cortez Hurtado. She was acquitted by the first court of anti-corruption and violence against women. The judge who paved the way for Choque's release has already been detained, while the search for more victims and the killer's second phase of violent offenses continues. Social organizations in defense of women's rights affirm they register over 160 women killers, and rapists who were processed and sentenced are currently on the loose.
teleSUR, Bolivia.
We'll be right back after this very short break. Don't go away. Hi, welcome back to From the South. In Ecuador, the Ministry of Education suspended on-site classes in Quito amid national mourning following a flood that left at least 25 dead and some 12 people reported missing. The ministry ordered the interruption of the teaching process in 7 schools in the sector of La Gasca, located in the Ecuadorian capital, in order to carry out cleaning and restoration work in these educational centers after the mayor, Santiago Guarderas, declared 3 days of mourning on Tuesday. In a press release, the official instance expressed its solidarity with the injured and the affected community. In this context, rescue, salvage, and cleanup brigades are working continuously to assist some 2,800 people affected and more than 340 victims of the phenomenon. On Wednesday, climate change activists denounced the expected inclusion of nuclear energy and gas by the European Commission in the list of green power sources for investment in the energy sector. The Commission will present its so-called taxonomy proposal, a classification system to define what economic activities can qualify for sustainable investment. It is highly expected that under certain conditions it will allow gas and nuclear energy to be part of the mix, making it easier for investors to inject money in activities related to both. With the EU aiming to reach climate neutrality by 2050 and to cut greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% by 2030, the bloc says the taxonomy is crucial to steer investments towards sustainable activities. The Commission's plans still need the backing of a large majority of member states and a simple majority in the European Parliament.
So we're here today to say that gas and nuclear cannot be a part of the EU taxonomy. What's happening today is the Commission are labelling gas and nuclear as green energy, and in so doing they're going to be channeling billions of euros away from renewables and towards dirty climate projects. What we're saying today, unfortunately, is this decision could kill the EU Green Deal and the ambition to achieve climate neutrality in Europe by 2050.
Haiti is another one of the countries in the region that has been hit hard by the rains. According to the latest official report, 4 people lost their lives and another one is missing in the midst of the floods. Jerry Chandler, director of the Haitian Civil Protection Agency, reported that the 4 fatalities took place in the Northwest Department, one of the most affected. He also said that at least 20 municipalities have been hit by the effects of the rains. In the same department, more than 2,500 houses have been totally destroyed. In the north and Cape Haitian, there have been displacements which make it difficult to assess the extent of the damage. The situation in the Caribbean country is worsening because most of the cities do not have drainage systems to relieve the flooding. On Wednesday, President Vladimir Putin accused the United States and North Atlantic Treaty Organization NATO of offering inadequate responses to the demands made by Russia regarding the security situation on its border with Ukraine. The Spanish outlet El País leaked confidential documents with the answers that the United States and NATO offered to the Russian demands. In these files, the Biden administration and the Western allies asked the Kremlin to begin the withdrawal of its troops, but they do not renounce the possible entry of Ukraine into NATO. Putin said it is clear that fundamental Russian concerns ended up being ignored and warned about the fact that Ukraine itself is just an instrument through which the United States executes a containment policy aimed at restricting Russia's development. We'll be right back after this very short break. Please stay with us. Hi, welcome back. Taxi drivers and public transportation vehicles in Lebanon blocked roads on Wednesday as part of a 3-day strike to protest over the decline of the population's living conditions. The second strike of its sorts in 3 weeks forced schools, universities, and many shops to close. The strike, organized by the public transportation and labor unions, paralyzed the capital, whose streets were eerily quiet. The drivers, who are demanding that the state provide them with subsidized fuel again, also closed some roads with burning tires. The government ended state aid in October, a move that came amid a devastating economic crisis. Last week, the World Bank said that Lebanon's economy contracted by more than 58%, warning in a report that the small country's financial meltdown poses a threat to long-term stability and social peace.
I told you we have unions that are working on this action, the strike. Of course, if we do not reach an outcome today, we're going to continue. We don't have any other option. If in 3 days we do not achieve what we want, there might be an escalation. All we would do is implement the union's decisions. We as drivers in general are in pain, so we are going to continue because there is no other option. The goal is to make this state feel for these drivers who cannot afford their daily bread, for the taxi drivers who, while working in the taxis, are now looking for iron to sell or some wood to collect and sell.
Some 3,000 people in Syria have normalized their legal status as part of the reconciliation process led by President Bashar al-Assad in Raqqa province. The reconciliation process continues in Raqqa province as members of armed groups submit themselves to the pardon and regularize their legal status since the start of the reconciliation process launched by the Syrian government on November 14th. Almost 3,000 residents of this locality have laid down their weapons and surrendered to the authorities despite the obstacles of the U.S.-backed militia, which is trying to prevent them from joining this process. Former military who voluntarily surrendered to the competent authorities, that is, those who joined the reconciliation process, can finally return to their regular lives. Now, on Tuesday, health workers were making headway in vaccinating hesitant residents of a rural Fulani community just outside the Nigerian capital, Abuja. Medics have been up against false theories about the COVID-19 vaccine, claiming that it's a tool to thin out the Fulani population and that it causes impotency. President Muhammadu Buhari, who's also Fulani, had been inoculated, which is being used as a strategy to involve residents. Officials have set an ambitious goal of vaccinating more than a quarter of the population by the end of February. According to the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, authorities managed to administer 100,000 jabs a day last year. That's almost doubled to 200,000 per day now, the agency said. Around 4% of those eligible for the jab have been fully vaccinated in Nigeria, which has a population of 206 million people, according to the NPHCDA.
We have been visiting these people to collect vaccine, they refuse. But now today, we came to their aid to tell them that the president is their tribe as Fulani. He has received, and it was shown in the media, which everybody has seen it. We now use it as a strategy to tell other Fulani here that they are staying with us here to collect this vaccine. But luckily enough, today we have vaccinated so far many people in this camp.
China is making progress in its goal of achieving herd immunity against COVID-19, with more than 3 billion vaccine doses against the new coronavirus already being administered in the country, enabling it to prevent millions of infections and virus outbreaks that occurred over the past year.
China achieved a milestone of applying more than 3 billion doses of vaccines against COVID-19 in its territory, which means that more than 1.2 billion people in the Asian giant have already received 2 shots and completed the vaccination program. This means that China has managed to vaccinate almost 90% of its 1.4 billion population, thereby creating a herd immunity against the virus. According to official figures, countries around the globe applied 10 billion doses of vaccines against the virus, and China is at the forefront, with almost a third of them administered in the Asian giant. At the same time, and amid growing global concerns about the spread of new variants, China is speeding up the application of a third booster dose to increase the level of protection. Health experts in the Asian giant recognize that although vaccines do not fully prevent new infections, they are a very effective barrier to stop the spread of the virus and prevent severe cases and death.
The herd immunity achieved in China and other countries around the world, thanks to vaccines or other antiviral drugs against COVID-19, are encouraging news. I think we are now in a better position to face new variants such as Omicron and Delta.
Chinese scientists and international researchers recently confirmed that the 2 most widely used COVID-19 vaccines in China, developed by Sinovac and Sinopharm, proved to be highly effective against the Delta variant and preventing major health complications and death. According to the Asian authorities, this supports the idea that vaccines have had a significant impact in preventing infections by the Delta variant and also controlling the latest outbreaks detected in the country.
The United States medical system is grappling with a national blood shortage as the Omicron surge hampers its ability to collect blood from donors at workplaces and college campuses. The American Red Cross, which provides 40% of the nation's blood, said supplies have reached dangerously low levels, which means some hospitals have to delay surgeries because they don't have enough blood on hand. Blood collection agencies and hospitals officials say that they are facing the worst shortage in more than a decade after blood donations dropped 10% since the start of the pandemic. The Omicron surge that began in the U.S. in December has led to staff shortages, blood drive cancellations, and fewer donations as donors stay home or get sick with COVID-19. Now, we've come to the end of this news brief, but remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at teleSUR English. You can also follow us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For teleSUR English, I'm Dio Martin. Thanks for watching.